To add to the insanity of this whole circus, the race was being flagged by Funkmaster Flex. So one of the cooler things that we did at AMS in the early days was in 2005, we were contacted by Chris Rado from World Motorsports to do this SEMA build-off challenge where they were going to build two Mitsubishi Evolutions during SEMA out in the parking lot. And then they were going to have a dyno and drag racing competition on the Las Vegas Strip. So it was going to be Paul Afontis of Lucas Oil fame back in the Nopi Racing Series days and Chris Rado. So we were put on the team to kind of help build this car over the 3 days. So there was a lot of energy drinks involved and a lot of long hours. And to add complexity to this, it wasn't our typical build that we did at AMS, where we have our set parts that we use. We know they all work together. It was kind of a hodgepodge of sponsored parts. Obviously, they wanted to get a bunch of sponsors in there to give them the parts for the cars. So that added a bit of complexity to it. So from our team, it was my former business partner, Martin, was originally going to be the guy on the team. He's a good tuner. He knows the cars well. But Chris Rado, back then, and probably still today, is a bit of a personality. So he was off signing autographs and doing who knows what. So we actually had one of our other guys that was down at SEMA for the show that had to kind of jump in, Eric Jones, and he was one of our lead technicians. So he kind of jumped in to get this car all put together in the short amount of time. So to make matters even worse, there's a lot of parts that you clearly don't need for drag racing, like a stereo system, lowering springs, and a lot of nonsense. I think there was a nitrous kit that was supposed to go on the car. I mean, it was just a lot of nonsense parts that really weren't necessary to kind of do what needed to be done. And it was an event that was meant to promote Yahoo Autos. They had some sort of new automotive forum type thing, and the Nopi Racing Series, which we were involved in. Because at AMS, we had started out street racing back in the early 2000s, and kind of like Hector in the Fast and Furious, when he went legit and went to the NYRA circuit, we kind of followed suit and joined the Nopi circuit back in 2003. But on the World Motorsports team, it was Chris Rado was the chief of it, and then we had the Turbo Twins and Eric Plabani, and this was kind of in the days of Lisa Kubo and Chris Rado, kind of probably dating myself back to the early import drag racing days. So the goal for horsepower, we were leaving the engine stock internally because just you really can't build an engine in that amount of time. The goal realistically is about 550 wheel horsepower we knew was safe, and on the third day, in the late afternoon or evening, we went over to Dynajet's facility in Las Vegas with the cars, and we put out 550 wheel horsepower. I mean, which was pretty easy for us. We had done it many times before with our turbo kit and intercooler, so we had a good idea of the power we'd make. I think Paul Afontis made 520, so we ended up winning that challenge. So the drag race was to be held at 3 in the morning on the Las Vegas Strip in front of the old Frontier Hotel, which was a pretty dated old hotel that ended up getting destroyed just a couple years later. So to add to the insanity of this whole circus, the race was being flagged by Funkmaster Flex. But they had an 1/8 mile strip blocked off, and the race went down at 3 in the morning, and the first race went off. Chris Rado took the win by quite a bit. I don't know if they felt sorry for him or wanted to just get a good run, better for camera. They decided to do a second run, and Paul was using nitrous on his car, and he was on the two-step and ended up throwing a rod through the side of the block, and so we took the win again. So we decisively won the event for him, that was for sure. This event did pretty well for us, although we were kind of overshadowed by Chris Rado and World Racing because, well, we were invited by him. But we used it to our best advantage. So really the outcome was pretty consistent with how things worked at AMS. We were always kind of behind the scenes with our parts being put on cars by our dealers all over the world. They were out racing the cars with our parts, so we were always kind of behind the scenes. So this kind of fit into the model. So we did the best we could to kind of utilize the publicity from it. But the whole setup, I mean, they poured a lot of money into this. I mean, there's like big scaffolding, like this huge build-off when it was all roped off where the fans could watch it all going down. There's girls dancing on the stage on top of the scaffolding. Funkmaster Flex is, DJing, whatever he does. It was a big deal back then. I mean, there were just parts strewn all about this pit area, and like I said, we're building a car with parts we didn't normally use, and how do they jive together? We were using our turbo kit, but with a Turbonetics turbo. We were using a Holley fuel pumps when we were used to using Walbros. So there's kind of a lot of like unknowns, like how do you get this hodgepodge of parts to kind of all work together, which it ended up working out. We made the horsepower that we expected, and we didn't blow up the car, and ultimately the winning car was given away at a race in 2006. It's one of the first races of Nopi's 2006 season. The car was raffled, or some sort of sweepstakes that they had for this car, and the car was actually given away. Unfortunately, I don't have the VIN to post on VINwiki, but I am pretty curious to see where that car ended up. And given the hodgepodge of parts that was used to put this thing together, I'm sure that it would be an easy car to find.